Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Vintage Super League Season 9. We're at week 2. I'm joined by longtime friend and vintage enthusiast, Andy Probasco. How are
Hey,
you?
how's it going? I'm doing great. How are you?
Doing pretty well. Could have done better that match, but you win some and lose some. Hopefully you win more than you lose. Start
Yeah.
off. Actually, that match was really interesting. I misclicked in game 1. I was trying to get Tinker
hmm
instead of Talarian.
We were
And
talking about that. Yeah.
And what's interesting is that he has a lot of ways to remove Blightsteel Colossus, with
hmm
Dak, but after a time walk, was stuck at 2 lands. So I thought if there's a time to go for it, it's now. And also, even if he has something, at least it's put him on notice for games 2 and 3 to be prepared for that. And then I would just sideboard out Blightsteel Colossus and Tinker anyway, which I did.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. We actually noticed while sideboarding, you had boarded out Tinker Colossus, Randy had boarded out his Sword Stuff Plowshares, and then after a minute, reconsidered it and brought back in one Sword Stuff Plowshares. So
yeah.
I'm guessing he was looking at your deck list and then thought the Tinker. So
Would,
it's a valid.
would the Tinker have worked out based upon what you saw from his hand? Probably not, is my
mm,
guess, but I think we saw a Pyroblast the next turn, so he probably had Pyroblast in
Yeah,
hand.
I think he would have had the answer to it. I mean,
Yeah.
he would have had one less counter for later, but
I was really sad when he countered the Mystic Remora. I knew that I probably wasn't winning the game after Remora got countered.
yeah, you had a very good Remora hand with like 2 lands, 2
Yes.
moxes,
Yes.
a nice setup for a great long game, and then step stuff.
I also had a very interesting game 2 and game 3 Vampiric Tutor options. In game 2, I could have just gotten PO and probably would have been able to go off there, but I got Mentor instead
hmm
because I wanted to make a little bit. I wasn't sure that I'd be able to win with the PO, right? Because I have to
Yeah.
Ancestral into another Mox to be able to do something or
hmm
an artifact, but it turned out I would have. And then in game 3, I was just praying that Time Vault resolved, but it didn't. And
Yeah, but
I could
I
have,
mean, even if if you had another turn, your hand was still good.
yeah,
Uh,
I
just
was.
short that.
I could have also vampiric tutored for balance, which was something I was thinking about the
hmm
whole time.
hmm
But he would have still had 2 cards in his hand, or at the end of that, so
Yeah.
would have lost the mentor. But it seems like you need to be on offense. Maybe if I had held the opal, but I was nervous about holding the opal because at any time Lavinia can come down and then I can't actually cast opal,
Yeah, we
resolve
had
opal.
talked
So
about that. It took me a second to realize what you're doing, and then as soon as it clicked, I'm like, oh, vintage is a little different today. And it's going to be that way for a little while. You're going to have to keep that in mind now. You don't have to worry about that, which is good.
well, I'm looking forward to going back and watching the video and seeing how that actually unfolded from Randy's perspective. But it looks like our players are ready. So, any predictions on who's going to come out on top here?
Uh, Lavinia survival is such a wild card. It's hard to know. I like survival just in general, like survival versus Xerox, but we'll have to see. It really could go either way.
Here we go. Well, here we go. And Randy has the Monastery Mentor, but only a 1 land hand in a Xerox deck it does have a cantrip, so it's a typical Xerox hand you want to keep, right?
It's keepable.
And Brian's got that's a heartbreaker. He's got green mana via Black Lotus, and he's got the survival, but he doesn't have any stable mana. So
Yeah.
besides the Noble Hierarch, so he could play survival and Noble Hierarch, but he can't do anything,
Yeah.
right?
And we know it gets missed out. Brian doesn't, but it's
Th-
still
There's one
very risky.
there's one other thing he could do. He could play Black Lotus, play survival, activate survival, discarding Vengevine for Elvish Spirit Guide, and use the Elvish Spirit Guide to play the Noble Hierarch. So he gets a little bit more gas that way, but in the sense that
Mhm.
he'll have the Vengevine in the graveyard.
Yeah,
But
for
that's not going
later.
to
Yeah.
really it doesn't get him ahead in any sense, right? He's just treading
Yeah.
water. So he's thinking pretty hard about it, is my guess. But I think ultimately he's going to decide to mulligan this, don't you?
I agree. Though it looks like he's on the draw, there might be suddenly if you draw a land on your first turn, this hand's a lot more interesting, but I
Yeah.
don't think you can. That's so greedy.
Yeah, he's probably trying to figure out what the chances of him drawing a land on turn 1 are.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Randy's hand is not without risk either. It's got a lot of late game cards. I
Yeah,
mean, Dig, Jace, and Mentor.
it's
Although
got more tools, but it could just as easily fall apart if that preordained miss.
I feel like the disenchant is kind of a linchpin though, because he
Mm-hmm.
knows he's going to resolve the turn 1 preordain, so he's a really good chance of being able to disenchant a survival if Brian plays it on turn 1 or turn 2. So I feel like that's kind of the decisive, the kind of the card that gives you a little bit of it's a comfort blanket here for Randy.
Yeah. It even this isn't Brian's hand, but it even answers an early hollow one, which is the other
Good point.
scary fast draw.
Good point. Which Fragmentize is not.
Yeah, yeah.
One of the limitations of the Fragmentize uh, disenchant variant. You don't really see disenchant a lot these days, so pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if that is a nod specifically to Hollow One. It's Hollow One. I mean, instant speed obviously matters sometimes, for sure.
Yeah. It could
Not
also be
mishandle.
that Brian doesn't realize he can proceed forward.
That is totally possible.
This is a complex operation we've got here. We've got multiple moving parts and
Yeah.
communications with our producers and the players. Oh, but it looks like Brian has mulliganed, and he's found the Bazaar. Interesting card that he's included in his list, which you don't see in a lot of survival decks. Talk about Lion's Eye Diamond, Andy, as a survival, someone who's played survival in a big tournament. What do
Yeah,
you make of that?
the thing I like about survival or about Lion's Eye Diamond in the deck is, now I haven't played with it, it gives you a huge burst of green mana. Like
Yeah,
playing a survival and activating it once, and with that trigger on the stack, sacking Lion's Eye Diamond, that's just 3 extra Venge Vines.
yeah,
That does
which
make
is
sense to me.
pretty close to lethal.
Yeah. Though it doesn't seem to do too much if you don't have the survival. You can play some root walls off. That's not too exciting.
Yeah, and you can also pump root walls with it.
True.
Even less exciting.
It's gonna matter someday.
So Randy has found a pair of lands with his preordained. So the Xerox deck, the Alan Comer strategy of substituting lands for cantrips is paying dividends here.
Mm-hmm.
Now, does he need all 3? He could use all 3, but does he want all 3? Is the question.
Yeah, I think you put one on the bottom. I think you put one on the bottom. You wouldn't even hate to draw 3 lands. There's a reasonable chance he draws a 3rd land in 2 turns anyway.
By the way, I just wanted to point out that having drawn Black Lotus, this is the kind of hand where if he had drawn in Bazaar into survival, he could have possibly just win here.
With the lines at M2, yeah.
Yeah. It takes you back to like the good old days of Long when you have Black Lotus and Lion's Eye Diamond. Just combo out.
You brainstorm into a Lion's Eye Diamond. It's all horrifying. Yeah, interesting.
But instead, he drew into Containment Priest and Wonder. Containment Priest is not exactly the card for this matchup.
It's not. I would have been so tempted to play it to have a card dealing damage, but I think Brian may be right here, and Containment Priest wouldn't be enough anyway. Kind of that Bazaar has to draw him into something better. And drawing 2 extra cards a turn, it very well might.
So this game's going to turn pretty quickly here. I think Brian has to find something good here. He can't just sit back and try and win the long game with Squeeze simply because Randy's got Monastery Mentor coming down next turn, and then Jace potentially the turn after that.
Yeah.
Now, Randy still has to get like a cantrip or get something going with the Mentor in play, but my guess is it's going to happen pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
This is a remarkably kind of asymmetrical hand for Brian. I mean, it's got like so much acceleration and yet so many dirtle cards.
Yeah.
Like the configuration is just wrong. Like Squee is very powerful against control decks. The longer the game goes, it just generates card advantage turn after turn after turn. But it's really not what's happening here. So it looks like Brian's made the decision to take a line that you suggested last turn to apply a little bit of pressure. Noble Hierarch, though, is yet another mana source. So it's both a little bit of pressure and a mana source.
Mm-hmm.
One of the
We will
few.
see. Yeah, he's not. He had the option of playing Rootwalla 2 turns ago. He didn't. That means holding it for Venge Finds, right? That has to be what the plan is here. Little 1/1 for 0. It's nice, but it may not be worth giving up that opportunity.
The misstep was actually a pretty nice draw here. It's normally not that great against survival, but the fact that he can actually play it with Mentor in play, it'll generate a monk if he decides to play the Rootwalla, and it gets him a little bit more graveyard delve. So when he does play the dig through time, it'll be able to do something. For example, if Randy will be really sad if he draws a fetch land next turn, because then he can play the Jace and then dig.
Yeah.
And again, Brian is just struck out with Bizarre Baghdad. It's just not given him very. I feel like if I was playing as Brian, his Bizarre draws would have been way better.
Yeah, going with the Rootwalla now, which is unfortunately a turn too late. Because Rootwalla is not really even that juicy a misstep target usually, but when you get a free token out of it.
Yeah, it's like a 2-for-1 here. It clears a blocker and creates a monk.
A blocker which, with Brian having nothing but mana, could have easily blocked and killed Mentor.
Wow.
Time Walk's pretty nice.
Time Walk is pretty nice.
Time Walk, and if
that's
nothing
5
else happens, that puts on dig lane.
Well, it's 5 damage right now, and then next turn it's 7 damage if he just plays Disenchant on Black Lotus and nothing else. So that's, and there's a good chance we'll see something else here. So, wow, that's something else. Unfortunately, Lavinia does not pump the Monk or the Mentor. Would you Disenchant Black Lotus just to try and get a little bit more damage?
I think
him down to 8?
he can dig now, right? I mean, you lose some good cards in the graveyard.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right. I was thinking he needed 1 more mana, but with the Time Walk, he now is perfect. Yeah, he's on dig. Well, that answers that. I think you definitely did. Is there any reason to Disenchant the Black Lotus? Any good reason? I mean, I suppose
if you wanted to leave Time Walk in your graveyard for Snapcasters, I don't remember how many Snapcasters.
Actually, if Brian draws a survival here with the Black Lotus and the Elvish Spirit Guide, he might be able to just go off.
True. I don't know that it would be lethal, but it would be a lot of Venge Vines really fast.
I think as between the options of dig, Lavinia, or Disenchant, those are all really interesting options, actually. Lavinia does stop the Hollow One shenanigans and the Rootwalla, so there's good reasons to do that. That's interesting. That's a really interesting scenario, actually. Do you Disenchant the Lotus to try and prevent your opponent from comboing out with the survival? Being mindful that it generates a token and it gets you 7 damage that turn, so you're lethal next turn. So Randy would have won this turn. Even I think through this Lavinia, if he had played Disenchant last turn. Or dig, certainly dig. But Lavinia also stops Brian from just comboing out. So I think actually given all of that, Disenchant might have been just the safest play.
Does Lavinia... No, so with Lavinia in play, they'll cast Rootwallas, but they get countered.
Yes,
and you can still put Venge Vines into play.
Yes, you'll still trigger the Venge Vine, but you won't get the additional power.
Yeah, but in theory, with enough mana, it doesn't stop the survival. Stop some of the creatures, but not the Venge Vines.
But the dig is very attractive on that turn. I just think the Disenchant stops him from going absolutely bananas, just by top decking Bizarre and then using the Lotus and the Elvish, because he'll get 4 activations, which is pretty unbelievable. Potentially more if he drew another land, which he did. He would have had 5 activations actually if he drew survival there.
No, the don't play anything lets you hold back and get the specific answer you need with dig.
Right.
Like if Brian gets.
But then he's only able to attack for 4 damage.
Yeah, it requires an extra turn of attacking for sure. The old instant speed prowess.
Right. I mean, I think the obvious play is dig through time, but I think upon reflection, maybe the safest is actually the Disenchant. I'm interested what the chat thinks. I don't see the chat right now, but well, Randy has gone for the disenchant, realizing that it's the play here that. I mean, he could have just digged, right? He might have been able. He could have probably just gotten another land and played disenchant as well. Ooh, Deputy of Detention. This is a singleton that Brian's had his deck. You don't see a lot of.
I pulled that up on my screen. Forget what that is. That's the new card, right? Yeah. Well, it's certainly something Brian wants to play now. Don't know that it's going to be enough.
Too little, too late. And by the way, he did find the survival, which was also too late.
Yeah, that's funny. It buys Brian like one turn, and if it bought 2 or 3 turns, that survival would have done a lot of damage. But it's be enough.
Randy couldn't play dig once his opponent had Lavinia in play, so he had to do it either before the Lavinia or post comp or now. Presumably, he's going to do it now.
Yeah. Did he have man
I'm kind of obsessed with that turn where he could have played dig, Lavinia, or disenchant. I'm fascinated by it. I mean, I think that the intuitive, obvious, powerful play is dig, but I think maybe the correct play would have been disenchant.
All right, so we're gonna see dig now. Now there's a man up, so it goes quite a ways. You can kind of see in the bottom right corner of the screen vaguely. It's like a Dak fade in.
Yeah, Dak, a trio of lands, a ponder. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't necessarily make it everything, but I like just a trip.
My guess is that he was going to grab the cantrip and a land or a spell.
Yeah, took the Dak, which was fine as well.
Yeah.
Triggers browse next turn.
Second Jace and Ancestral Recall. Wow, that's a good one. If he got in the land, he would have been able to play it.
That would have been nice there, but still pretty good situation. Has to block the Mentor, so it was the 2 anyway.
So Brian's down to 2. What can he possibly do?
Now we've already seen both Lion's Dynamic and Low.
That's right. And the Elvish Spirit Guide is gone too. I don't know whether he runs more than 1, but the Mox is not going to do anything. Yep, that's it.
Yeah, that's not enough. All right. Well, I'm imagining they both are going to do a bit sideboarding. Randy's going right for the Swords to Plowshares, which makes a lot of sense. And Fragmentize. Hit that survival.
Randy's removing the pair of Flusterstorms and some mental missteps.
Misstep's an interesting one because there are cards to counter. Countering the mana creatures can be very good, but sometimes worthless. So Misstep's not dead, but it's not kind of what it usually is.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's, sometimes the usual case is you have more cards to bring in than you can bring out. Sometimes in certain matchups, you have more cards you want to take out than you can bring in. So then you have to decide what's the marginally better card, right? Like you might decide between like an additional Misstep or a Pyroblast, which can actually hit a Lavinia. And then you have to decide not just, which is more, which does your opponent have more of, but which is the bigger threat. So there's, I feel like we've seen an inordinate number of hands in the matches so far where an opponent has Ancestral Recall and Lavinia and can play one or neither. It can play. So Randy had a pair of Lavinias, and Ancestral Recall, but a Plains is only land.
That's unfortunate.
Wow, Brian's hand is so cool. This really takes you back to like those old school hands, remember? Like the old survival decks, like the TNT and the Vengir Mask deck.
Yeah, once you have, this is a super obvious interaction to old vintage players like us, but once you have 2 or more squeeze, that Bazaar is just drawing you cards. You discard 3, but 2 of them are free.
It's basically Ancestral Recall every turn.
Yeah. So the longer the game goes, better it is. But Randy goes down with
Oh my
yeah.
God. Brian's
And
heartbroken.
me and Brian were talking because my mana base is fragile. That's the one land destruction effect in the pod tonight. That one strip mine.
I can only imagine that Brian is probably more crestfallen at that moment than probably any of us are going to be the rest of the night. Just
Yeah, the
because,
squeeze don't do so much now.
oh, and he doesn't have survival to back it up either. Wow.
Yeah.
Randy's got the old dyssynergy of rest in peace and Snapcaster Mage. I
Yeah.
remember back in the day when I used to play Keeper, people on the Beta Minia forums, you might remember this, Andy, would make fun of me because I'd play with Moat and Masticore in the same deck, even though they obviously did different things.
Yeah.
But I've
Yeah.
always I've struggled with Rest in Peace in Xerox because it's so powerful, having this dual effect, but it just wipes out many of your card advantage engines, from the Delve
hmm
spells to the
hmm
Snapcaster JVP.
Yeah. I feel like against a dredge deck, it's just worth it. You're fine not being able to dig this game because it's so powerful. Against survival, it's a little tougher because it's good against them, but it
But
doesn't
it's
just
not
beat them.
quite, yeah, not quite as
Yeah.
good. Well, here we go. The Lavinia litmus test faces its next phase. We've got Lavinia in play in the hands of the survival pilot. Um,
Yeah.
Randy, unfortunately for us and the viewers, is not going to let this resolve. Or if he is, he's going to just bolt it next
Bolted
turn.
immediately.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm assuming planning on a bolt there.
Man, Brian's hand is so good if he had that Bazaar. Between the Vengevine and the
Yeah.
Hollow One and the Rootwalla.
Would be up quite a few
Wow.
cards by now.
I mean, I honestly don't think Randy. I think Randy. Well, he would have had the turn 2 Rest in Peace, which would have been his saving grace,
Sure.
and
Yeah.
it would have nuked the squeeze, but it might have just been too late with all the power that Brian would have on the board.
Yeah. I
I,
mean, there would
I
be a hollow one in play, or
Yeah,
it would have eaten the force.
exactly.
Uh,
Randy would have had to struggle to
oh, we got a hard
play
cast
these.
Vengevine here. That's not the worst. Can't be force. Well, I guess Randy can bolt in there,
Yeah.
which probably has to do here.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing, right? I mean, he has these wimpy Snapcaster mages which just don't do anything, and they're even worse when he doesn't have a third land.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you think about the value proposition, is the second Snapcaster mage better than a Vengevine? I don't think so, right? I think I'd pitch it at this point.
Yeah.
Now he's got to get the order of operations right, and the sequencing, which he does.
Mm-hmm. It's always it's always painful to counter a Vengevine or anything that kind of
Yeah,
in a graveyard. Um, it's that might come down next turn, right? Randy has the rest but can't cast it anymore. Um, yeah.
jeez. So he doesn't even have the white mana to play Rest in Peace. He could have fetched.
Up.
Oh wow!
His
Here we go.
Bazaar.
Yeah, buddy.
That's huge.
Wow. This is
Yeah.
wow.
It's
So
squeeze Hollow
so
One, Vengevine, Rootwalla.
I mean, it actually lines up perfectly, right? He gets to bin the 3 cards he wants to bin. Then he gets to play Lavinia again, another Lavinia, and he gets to play these 2 free spells. That's
Mm-hmm.
pretty unbelievable.
Yeah, that's huge.
He just has to. He has the Ruby too to play the Rootwalla, so he can
Yeah.
actually discard Wonder. I don't
So I
know
don't
that he
remember the
really.
timing, but if Randy forces the Lavinia, he wouldn't have had an answer to the Vengevine. Could have
Right.
bolted it, but that puts him in the same situation.
Randy needs such an incredible series of draws here. It's hard to imagine what it actually could be.
Well,
I mean,
okay,
I guess it begins with that. Yeah,
yeah, Dax steals Hollow One.
exactly.
Um,
So you steal the Hollow One, then you have the good old face-off, right?
yeah, I think he, well, There's 2 decks. So Randy steals the hollow one. Brian attacks. Randy just takes it.
You know what? Brian was being conservative. He wanted to keep that root wall up, but there's a good case to be made. He should have played that root wall last turn.
So the advantage of keeping root wall is can
get a second creature.
Vengevines again if necessary. But does Randy just have to play the rest now to stop the squeeze? Or the squeeze more of a threat now? No, okay.
I think he's just dead if he does that because he's at 12.
Yeah, they all attack him, and then the hollow one's tapped next turn. So being pretty huge.
The other thing is that, you know what? The wonder in play means flying, so Dak is dead.
Oh, yeah, okay. or not even dead, right? Or just attacks Randy to win. Because what is it? 6 damage now, 6 damage next turn.
Yeah. We just need to see what he gets. Oh, he got double Vengevine!
That's lethal.
Boom, boom.
That's
boom,
lethal.
boom. What an unbelievable draw.
Yeah.
Well, and by the way, the discipline in holding that second root while it paid off, right? I mean,
absolutely.
Yeah.
So the hand fell apart when it was strip mined, but there's still 3 Bazaars, 4 survivals in the deck to turn the hand back on. Yeah,
this was beautiful.
Is really interesting.
This is beautiful. I mean, I'm not rooting for one player over the other. I just think it's beautiful that one card comes in and the whole thing just comes together. And we really haven't seen survival in the VSL. You know, we've seen it a little bit in the Team VSL, but not since this past summer.
So maybe I'll have to go back and watch this game because I feel like I like every play Randy made this game, but there were like 4 turns that Rest in Peace could have come down. It never felt like the right move, right? There was never a turn where it seemed like that was the right play. But if it was in play 3 turns ago, none of those things could have happened.
His hand was so awkward because, first of all, because it had Rest in Peace and a pair of Snapcaster Mages, which is like, anti-synergistic to begin with, dis-synergistic to begin with. Yeah. But then on top of that, he's running a 3-color deck, and the way that game unfolded, he really needed access to all 3 of his colors, and he only ever had access to 2. So he had to choose at the critical point in the game to go for red or go for white, and it cut him off from the other.
Yeah, just imagine now. This isn't Randy's fault because Randy's running 4, but imagine if that lightning bolt was a source to plowshares. Just how different that hand is.
Definitely.
I guess, or a path to exile is your option. Yeah, interesting. All right, so we got 2 reasonable keeps.
So I didn't pay close attention to this, but we now see that Brian brought in Wismare, presumably for the Rest in Peace. This entire game, based upon these hands, this is the kind of game where, to me, it really matters who goes first, because both players, more than normal, because both players have turn 2 plays. Or in Brian's case, he had turn 1 Thalia.
Elder Spirit Guide.
Brian does not have a lot of action, though. He doesn't have a lot of gas. In fact, he has nothing, really. Yeah,
I really wanted that Thalia to resolve. Now, this is interesting because you got to be tempted as Randy to this game be like, but now you got the Treasure Cruise. You want to resolve that.
Exactly.
He does have the time. He doesn't know it. He's got plenty of time.
Right. So, I mean, and the other thing is, I would feel pretty comfortable with Lavinia in play that my opponent is not going to be able to accelerate a big survival. So I feel like you can play Lavinia. Yeah, you can play the Lavinia first, see if they have survival, and then Rest in Peace if you feel pressure that way. I mean, that's one of the upsides to Lavinia countering Moxton. Pretty funny.
And Lion's Eye Diamond.
Awkward. I mean, it is awkward that Randy is stuck in this position where he needs more mana, or he needs cantrips to fuel Delve, and none are forthcoming at the moment. And again, he has the dis-synergy, which we talked about even before this match really got underway, of the Rest in Peace in the Xerox deck.
Yeah. Now, I think I make his play here where you play the Rest in Peace. It's a shame. It means your Treasure Cruise is dead, but you're not really doing anything else.
True. But there really wasn't a lot in the graveyard.
If the Treasure Cruise was close. Yeah, Brian's hand of not that much is going to hardcast a Vengevine fairly soon.
So he's going to play Wismare here, which is a flying 1/3, which is actually irrelevant given that Randy has a hate bear.
Yeah.
There was a trade-off. I mean, he could have gotten in 2 extra damage this turn
Mm-hmm.
by pumping the Root Walla.
We played the Root Walla, played a Noble Hierarch, and Forestry damage.
That too.
But I mean, playing the Wismare is pretty nice here.
Yeah. I mean, the Wismare does evoke for just 1 mana, so he could have just held that to a better time he wanted. But
true.
this is really what Randy needed in terms of a top deck, something that can actually get him going.
It's funny now that the Treasure Cruise is turned back on again.
Black Lotus, is that what that is?
Yeah.
Wow.
Now, that's funny because it's obviously what Randy wants, but a Jace right now is not actually going to be that good.
I would snap Jace and I would Fate Seal Brian here, but he doesn't have the advantage of knowing his hand, which we do.
Yeah. But even even with that move,
the reason I would Fate Seal is because then you can afford to let even both of the things can come at Jace and it'll still survive.
Oh, I don't know. I totally forgot that when you brainstorm with Jace, it's going to draw the Force of Will that he knew about already.
Yeah,
so
but
it's not an issue.
It's true, but do you value Force of Will a lot in this scenario?
Actually, Vengevine triggers itself, right?
That's
right.
You
play Vengevine, but no, it doesn't have mana. You could play Vengevine, and then if you had 1 mana, play the Noble Hierarch, triggering itself. But that the mana's not there for that. Yeah. You were asking if I value Force of Will in the matchup in general. It's strange because it's one of those matchups where you, like in the past, I've felt like, oh, you don't necessarily want Force of Will against like a value-y, delvery kind of deck. You're burning cards. You don't want to be doing that. On the other hand, a turn 2 survival is so much better than everything else.
Right. No,
you really don't want that one thing.
I assume that you value Force of Will. My specific question was whether you value it in this scenario, this kind of mid-game,
exactly.
where it's like your opponent obviously doesn't have a Bazaar, if they had a survival, they would have played it. How important is Force of Will really here? Now, I assume Randy's going to put back Jason, rest in peace, because those are the cards that are not very good at the moment.
There's no reason not to.
Or rather, sorry, I mean,
but
you want to keep the Jace to pitch to Force and put your next best blue spell on top. But
if it were slightly different and it was harder.
But in this kind of scenario, the one thing that makes Force of Will a little bit awkward is not just that he might top deck Force, but that with Bazaar, Force of Will loses a lot of its value. Things are just uncounterable.
Yeah.
And you have to pinpoint like what you counter. It's not always obvious or intuitive. So here we go. Brian's taking the line you suggested, curving out nicely from turn 3 Wismare and turn 4 Vengevine. Exactly part of the plan, right?
Yeah. That's why you run it, I guess.
And this basically just saves the Jace. It's the Jace insurance protection plan. Pitch Jace to Force. Flying in. Is he going to peck away at the Jace? Yeah, he is. And now he's going to draw so he put that on top of the Treasure Cruise. Interesting.
Now, you got to be tempted to rest in peace here just to guarantee Vengevine, but you also want to get to business, right? Because that one Lavinia isn't going to hold him off forever.
Yeah. Wow, he's bottoming. He bottomed the second preordained and then drew into Lavinia. That's a cantrip punishment if you imagine. But Jace saves all, cures all. Finds Swords to Plowshares here. That's pretty nice.
Yeah.
Now, just on the face of it, if you were in this scenario in Randy's position, and your opponent has access to 4 mana next turn, right? What do you think the chances are that they'll be able to bring back the Vengevine with 2 cards in hand and a draw step?
Well, most creatures are castable in the deck, right?
Yeah.
are 1-drops. There's a large number of them. Yeah, Survival's a good draw.
Survival was a great draw.
Now, if Survival resolves, I don't think there's anything Brian can do this turn.
Are we certain of that? Here's what I think might happen. So he hasn't used the Elder Spirit Guide, right? So he can bin. You really don't want to bin either one of these creatures, do you?
You can. So the hollow one is. So the hollow one is castable, but it gets countered.
Yeah.
Oh, then yeah, then it's fine. You can.
Well,
discard.
no, you can. It's not countered as long as you can pay 1 mana for it. That's the thing. So if he can get.
Oh yeah, you can just discard 2 cards.
Yeah.
For it.
So he could bin 2 cards, get the Elder Spirit Guide as the last one, and then use the 1 mana from the Spirit Guide to cast the hollow one.
Yeah, so you can discard. You can go.
Discard Noble Hierarch for Basking Rootwalla. Discard Basking
Rootwalla to get Elder Spirit Guide.
Spirit Guide.
Yeah.
Bin Elder Spirit Guide to play hollow one. Return Vengevine attack.
Yeah, and the hollow one will be in play. The Vengevine will kill the Jace.
Will be attacking. Yeah.
Well, won't necessarily kill the Jace. It'll be blocked, but the Jace will die. You attack with everything, and
yeah,
can't do everything.
He has to block one or the other. The little peck of damage he did last turn makes that decisive.
Yeah. Now, because Randy has a swords in hand, it wouldn't actually go down that way.
Right.
And maybe that's why Brian decided to just be conservative and save the mana for a.
Now Randy has to decide: does he want to keep Lavinia around? Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so because Rootwalla is maybe the weakest creature, but situationally, it was doing something important there. So.
Wow. Wow. What an incredible game. I mean, it's cool how both players have found answers. And what's that?
We knew about that Lavinia, didn't we?
We did.
But Randy didn't want to recast it. He didn't
right.
spend all to do that.
But now Randy has to play the rest in peace again. I mean, he's just baked into that, right? He's going to lose.
Yeah, the survival will get something scary next turn.
He's going to lose his because so he hasn't activated the Jace this turn. He has to Fate Seal or lose Jace.
Yeah. So I like Fate Seal and play Rest.
Me too. In fact, I think that's his only option.
Yeah.
You can't play Lavinia because you already have one in play in their Legends.
Mm-hmm.
So
the other option is to brainstorm the Jace and hope to draw Time Walk Ancestor or something good, which could happen for sure.
For sure, yeah. Or fetch land and shuffle some of the stuff away and play Dak.
Mm-hmm. No, I think Brian, even when the rest is in play, will get 2 hollow ones. I haven't.
Wow, Bazaar's on top. Do you bin the Bazaar? Would you bottom the Bazaar? So let's look at this. The Bazaar makes it so he cannot use the hollow one. Randy doesn't know he's got a hollow one in play. I don't know. I might just let him have it. I don't know. What do you think? Let him have it, right?
I might let him have it because the rest in peace is coming down. That makes it less scary.
I mean, would you rather him have Bazaar Baghdad or a random bad creature? I'd rather have Bazaar. Just because survival's so powerful. Now, does he have a second Wisp-Mare in his deck? I haven't looked for that. That's going to be pretty important right now.
Yeah, I'm looking right now. I don't see that.
Is there any other card that he has that can deal with it?
Deputy of Detention can exile any non-land permanent.
There you go. That's what he's going to get. The problem, of course, is that if it has the CIP leaves play clause, then the Jace is just going to be able to bring that right back, right?
Yeah. Well, you can hit the Jace with it.
Definitely. The other thing you can do is I guess the problem is Deputy Detention makes him use all of his mana right now. Oh, he did all this in upkeep. That was so smart. That was such a smart play on Brian's part. He knew that Randy let him have the top card, so he survivaled in his upkeep, so he wouldn't draw that
Shuffle it away.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I do think it's one of the great tragedies of you don't see deck when you shuffle, so you don't know. Like when your opponent Fate Seals you, you're like, well, I'll fetch, and then you know what they were thinking, but you don't see that in Magic. All right, so
he's in Jace for sure, obviously.
Not
Days
so
and days
hot.
of rest in peace. This is a very peaceful occasion. I
Take a
wonder, do
nap.
you have a sense of how this game might have played out if Brian had taken the line I suggested a couple turns before,
Which line was that? The
where he could have survivaled twice and then paid 1 mana for Hollow One with the Elder
I
Spirit Guide?
I like that play. Well, okay, so because Brandy had swords in his hand, um, would have attacked Jace with everything, unable to pump the Rootwalla,
Right.
uh, blocks and kills Rootwalla, swords to Plowshares, the Vengevine, Jace survives. It actually wouldn't have been.
But he would have had it. He would have ended the turn with the Hollow One in play. Is the upside,
Yep,
which is
which
actually
which is
pretty
fine then.
significant. Yeah, pretty
Yeah,
significant at this point.
that legend rule really hurt Randy right now.
Ooh, looks like Brian Coval might actually pull this out. He's still got a number of turns, but it looks like he just kind of pulled ahead.
Yeah, it's hard cast Hollow One this turn, I guess.
Yep.
Which is interesting because that opens up, that makes Brandy drawing a land even better. I think you still make the play.
Wait a second. Yeah. Okay. I would just. Ah, there's the third land.
That's it. It's the exact turn.
Now he can't cast Dak. He has to cast the Mentor.
Oh, Talia. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's not so bad. Yeah, the Hollow One was good for Brian there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Funny with Thalia and your opponent tapped, you don't care about mentor. You're not.
I
Yeah,
think Brandy has a lot of
frustrated.
outs here, actually.
Yeah, let's roll
I mean,
this
if he
deck
can
now.
draw swords, he can draw um, any
Yeah,
number of cards.
there's no balance, which would
No.
be
The
well, balance
balance?
actually here is not so good.
No.
Swords would be good. Well, balance might be good after blocks this turn. Who knows
Now
what's
he
going
can
to happen?
only
But
play one spell.
doesn't
He can only play one spell, no matter what it
mm-hmm.
is. If he draws a land, the deck is still not going to save him. He can steal. Well, it might actually. If he draws a land, he can steal Hollow One, and that continues the
Get the
standoff.
blocker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here we go. Oh
That's not
God.
what we want.
Oh, so close. So close, and yet so far.
Yeah. Now I think it might not be enough. Now,
Brian
Brandy
has,
can
has
block
just
and survive this one attack, but
he's just hung onto this game by the skin of his teeth, by his fingernails.
yeah.
He's hanging on. I think he's going to claw it out with some extremely conservative prison style survival action here.
What happens if you double block Thalia, losing your mentor on the last turn? Too late now.
Yeah, it had.
You untap, you play Dak, you steal Hollow One.
Well, it does have first strike, so the first strike damage goes on the stack first, right?
Yeah, it kills the mentor.
Yeah.
And your Lavinia kills it.
Land.
Yeah. Well,
So he'll get a token.
And the Hollow One's a blocker. That's
Yes,
three
he gets to
blockers.
take. The ironic part is that Brian might have been better off not playing the Hollow One.
Yeah.
Just because he needed. Well, wow, this has become exceptionally close. So next turn he can block.
Yeah, if Randy draws a swords, awesome. If not, the Wingmare just being a 1/3 flyer is going to end it.
Right. So the Hollow Ones will trade. The Thalia he can. Jeez. Wow. Is Randy gonna survive? Next turn he can play the second Dak, steal the. If he can. Well, this is complex.
See how the blocks happen. Yeah.
Yeah, this is some complex combat, at least for a vintage player like myself. Yeah, exactly. You don't want to trade because you want the other one. So wow, Randy's that's gonna get Oh, that's right. The Thalia gives it.
Lavinia just died anyway.
Yeah,
Yeah.
true. So yeah,
But yes, I think it actually, you're right. It would have resolved through.
I was totally premature in my conclusion that Brian was going to win this.
Yeah, this is. I mean, the Wismare still represents a real.
Right. That's right. Wow. Wait, how is Randy at 4 life? Why isn't he at 3? Or was he just at 5?
He was at. Brian must have attacked Dak because Dak's gone.
Oh, okay, right.
I don't know which creatures attacked which, but
right.
Which was good because Randy really wants to draw 2 extra cards
and get rid of There were so many interesting hinge points in this game for Brian. I mean, Brian made plays that he one possible line, the big macro perspective on this is if he had held off on detentioning, putting Jason detention, then he might have been able to set up a scenario where he could combo out the turn that he phases out Rest in Peace. Like just build a hand where he's ready to combo out. And I don't think it would have taken that long to set that up. It's unfortunate he's drawn blanks for 3 straight turns. Pair of survivals doesn't really do much, let alone the third. What's interesting is that it's still not.
Ooh,
yeah, there we go. Now this is over.
Can kill the deputy, get the Jace back. Pretty good.
Pretty good.
Yeah, that double Dak, which looked so bad in hand for easily won the game.
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't say easily, but
yeah,
it's what did it. The way this game's going, I shouldn't get excited.
Who's the next match?
I'm not sure. I think it's me. I think it may be you. It could be us next. Yeah, getting that Jace back. Pretty good.
Yeah, Randy is sitting pretty. He's king on his throne at the moment. He just has to decide how he wants to carve Brian up with this Jace.
Yeah, if I'm Brian, there's no way I'm thinking got 2 Dax. That's what's going to happen. But it's funny that Hollow one could have been with all that green mana. The recipe play could have been. Well, Lavinia was out for a while, but it could have been 3 Root Wall.
Actually, if I'm Brian, what I wanted was a second Wismare in my deck, and this game would have been over way long ago. Yeah.
Well, now there's 2 Rest in Peace. So, but there was a window that
definitely.
Yeah. Are there any other value cards in here? For this matchup,
he's definitely built the Value Town survival deck.
Yeah.
Is Randy still deciding which Jace activation he prefers? Oh no, he's decided to cast 3 mana. All right, the Lavinia only costs 2, Randy. Right?
maybe just in a Thalia headspace.
Yeah. Fade Seal. Yeah, you can have that.
Yeah.
Smash.
It's a shame. You want survival to be good, just being able to tutor for whatever creature. But at this point, I don't think there's anything too exciting. Any single creature that's really spin this around.
I mean, you've got all these basically wimpy creatures, and then you've got these Ubermensch, right? That's the problem. Black Lotus. Draw Black Lotus, scoop.
Classic
Well,
vintage play.
that was a fascinating match. I mean, that was a great back and forth. Lots of options, lots of counterplay, and we're only halfway through the evening. So
I know. Like you said, I'm glad to see Survival sort of proven itself as like a real vintage force right now. Nice to have to see some great players running.
Powerful card, banned in many other formats, including Legacy.
Yep.
Well, we will be right back. It was great casting with you, Andy. I'll see you on the other side of the table before too long.
All right. Good luck.